Hello, hello, hello. We are back for a match preview of Montreal Impact this Saturday. It's a big game for both teams. I think maybe a little bigger for us since we're chasing them. Ron is having technical difficulties, but is going to try to join us somewhere along the way. We have Kevin with us from Off the Woodworks podcast, amongst one of his many. He's a really talented guy, so check out his podcast. Kevin, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. So if you just want to say hello to my viewers and pronounce your last name properly, that would be and tell them how you can be found on social media.
Absolutely. Well, it's Laramie, so it's almost like the cigarettes in The Simpsons. It's almost like Laramie, but it's Laramie.
Okay. And your podcast at Off the Woodworks, ending in an X. That's correct?
Absolutely, because I think I'm cool, so I put the next at the end. And you can follow me as well at Kev Laramie on Twitter, kevinlaramie.com, the easiest place to get all everything I do, CanadianSoccerNews.com as well.
All right, and Kevin is the only, we just had a little chat off air, and he is the only Montreal Impact podcaster where it shows solely Montreal. So big props to him. He's been running about 3 years. Anyway, with that said, we play Montreal this week at home. We played them really early in the season, a little shorthanded, stole a point on a 1-1 draw. We played a funny formation. We probably didn't deserve a point there, but we got one. I think they, came out 2-0 early, and then somehow we got 2 goals back along the way. With that said, we are in probably the best form we've been in since early in the season. 3 straight wins. We beat Red Bulls away, which was a huge win for us and for the playoff picture. And as far as Montreal goes, they're also coming off 3 straight wins. And prior to that, they had 2 draws. So their form is also well. As you guys know, in the arms race in the East, before the window closes, they got Drogba. Hopefully Kevin can talk to us a little bit about that. And, their next best player is Piatti, or, maybe he's their best player and you want to call Drogba their second best player. Personal preference either way. Piatti may or may not play this weekend. Hopefully, and we'll get to that as well. So just a brief overview. That's just Montreal in a nutshell. Kevin, can you talk about Drogba first and maybe about the situation on how he got to Montreal and how the fans and the team are embracing him?
You mentioned the Drogba situation. It's very interesting how the whole thing went down. If you're looking at earlier this season, there was rumors that started by Noel Butler from TSN Radio in Montreal, started talking about it maybe 3-4 weeks before there was actually smoke to that fire, saying, I hear he's a Chelsea supporter just like me, as you can see on my wall. He learned that Drogba was in talk with people. He wanted to come to MLS, and Montreal was a good destination. Unfortunately, the Chicago Fire had him on their 10-player confidential discovery list. Because of that fact, Chicago Fire had the rights to discuss and to negotiate with Drogba solely. Drogba was not necessarily interested in Toronto, wanted Montreal. There was a slowdown in negotiation. The league told Montreal, look, he might be interested in you. Why don't you contact Drogba? Talks were made between DeSantis and Saputo and Drogba. They liked each other. Then suddenly Chicago comes back in the process. Like, well, we're interested again. Let us have a chance. Drogba didn't want to. He wanted to play for Montreal. Montreal made a financial arrangement with Chicago to get the rights to negotiate with DDA. They signed him. He arrived in Montreal. Crazy support at the airport. About 1,500 people at the end were there to greet the new king of Montreal at the airport, to help him, welcome him to the city and give him a taste of what he's going to learn. And it's been 7 weeks now that he's been here. He played 6 games. We all know how it went. First game, just 30 minutes. Didn't do a lot. Then he scored in every game. 7 goals in 6 games. A hat trick. A brace. Goal of the week. Twice player of the week. Player of the month probably this week. So Drogba has probably proven that he didn't come here just for the money. He's here for the challenge. And he's winning that challenge. If you're looking at it, you can ask the defense or Birchman from DC this last Saturday how he's actually dominating. It's one of the most dominated players. We don't get to see that a lot in MLS. A player from his stature, his dominance. Yes, we saw Jovinko with Toronto having a great season, but it's different. It's not because of his physical strength. It's not because of his skills. It's a little bit of everything. DT is dominating like we rarely see in MLS, and it's very impressive impressive to see live.
Well, we will get to see him live this weekend, obviously. And can you also, Piatti has missed the last 2 games and is away, I believe, in Argentina
Yes,
for family reasons.
Last
So
Tuesday
could you
night,
just take over?
Yeah, last Tuesday night, unfortunately, his father suffered a stroke. So, emergency, he left for Argentina on that Tuesday night, not yesterday, the week prior. So he missed already the game last Wednesday and the game this Saturday against DC. It's a question. His father's doing better. It's not a scare, but he's on the mend. Is he going to be back for the weekend in form and in good mental shape to play, Piatti? That's another question. He hasn't been back to practice yet, so it's still up in the air if he's going to play or not. But he wasn't there the last 2 games. Montreal did play well and were able to score the last couple of games. Again, Drogba's terrorizing the defense, and Venegas at the center attacking midfielder. The other player that Montreal Impact got in the transfer window, a Costa Rican from the team of Liga Deportiva Alajuelense, the team that Montreal beat in the semifinals of the CONCACAF Champions League last May. So with that player, he's younger. He comes in MLS to learn a bit more, to grow. But he took over that center attacking midfielder spot and is able to feed Drogba. So this is basically the only thing you need to do. You don't need to dominate now that you have Drogba. You just need to give him the ball and let him do the rest. So that's one of the things where I'm not that concerned with Piatti now. It's actually good for him to heal those legs up because he has been known to be injury prone in his knees and ankles, in hard tissue type of injuries. Now, if he rests up before the playoff, that could be a good thing for Montreal.
Assuming you guys get the playoff.
Well, statistically, we can go there. Statistically, with the Impact's points per game right now and the game in hands, or it's all going to depend on Saturday. If Montreal beats Orlando has 99.2% left of not making the playoff. So that game, basically, it's a 6-point game. It's that cliche, but it's truly a 6-point game.
Oh, right. And, we're also in really good form, so I think it'll be a great match. And as my channel followers know, we do predictions at the end, so we'll ease our way there. And then we'll talk. We'll maybe go in a little bit about it at the end. So just in other words, and could you just give the viewers, and this is going to be really basic information for your followers, but just for the Orlando City fans, the casual ones, could you just tell us your basic formation and your preferred starting 11?
Usually they go with a 4-2-3-1. Over the last couple of weeks, Mauro Biello, the head coach, took over for Frank Lopez 6 weeks ago when Lopez got dismissed. Still unbeaten as a head coach in Major League Soccer, by the way. 6-game unbeaten streak, a record for Montreal in Major League Soccer. Mauro Biello adjusts his formation according to their needs, their roster, their injuries, which we didn't see with Lopez before. Now, 4-2-3-1 is the base, with usually Piatti as a cam. You have Venegas as the lamb, and as a right, Ojiro or Map. Map has injury this season. He has come back for a little bit. Now we're a little setback. Ojiro with his speed is a good option there too. Obviously, Drogba on top. He wasn't there earlier, but Drogba's the lone striker. They can move to a 4-1-4-1, which we saw last week with Donadell as the lone central defensive midfielder, with a Bernier, Rio Coker, Malice, or a Becker, or interchangeable pieces in the central defense with Ojiro and Map still at the sides of it with Drogba at the beginning. The defense hasn't really changed all season, except for suspensions by Laurent Simon, which he will be eligible to play. This Saturday, he's coming back from a suspension, but he needs not to get a yellow because he's only 1 yellow away from another yellow card accumulation. So that being said, he might be more safe in his sliding tackles, which might result for favorable chances for Orlando. That's going to be important. Cabrera usually with Sima in the central of the defensive. Then Toya, Oyongo, Camara are alternating and the fullbacks, but Oyongo has really been a revelation this year. A young Cameroon player that is so fast and is able to support the attack. He was the key piece in that Felipe Alexander trade, Montreal and New York Red Bulls. Oyongo was the key piece, and you see what he can do. He held up on the club basically earlier this year, but ever since he's back with the club, we show the real strength that he does bring and the attacking prowess that he does give to Montreal, which we haven't seen before from a left back or right back position.
All right. Well, you answered my question. My next question was, is there someone on your defense that we should keep an eye on? So thank you for beating me to the punch.
Sima and Oyongo. Sima, arguably one of the Defender of the Year candidate, probably is going to be a candidate. The fact that he has been reckless lately with the red cards, or just the referee is being more on him, so that could be a reason why he's getting those yellows. But he has to be considered in the Defensive Player of the Year for sure.
And as far as Orlando City goes, I believe we will stick to our typical 4-2-3-1 as well. Up top, I believe Laren will be in after that hat trick.
A nice Canadian boy, I have to say. I like Laren. He's a Canadian boy, the future of our national team. Actually, we see the light at the end of the tunnel for once with the national team, with players like Laren and Becker.
Yeah, and the guy who does, like I told you before, Mark, the guy who comes on and does the Toronto, he loves Laren too, and he said that the Canadian national team is not known for its goal scorers, so they're happy to have one now. So, and
hey, a hat trick last week for a little buddy. Was really happy to say that.
Yeah, and we're really happy to have him. He's broken the MLS rookie scoring record. He actually smashed it. He needed one last week. He got 3. I don't think his scoring is done for the year either. So we'll see Laren up top. I think we'll see Shea on the left. We'll see Kaká in the middle. He's the man in the middle, as everyone in the MLS knows. On the right, as of right now, I think we're going to see Lewis Neal, although I would prefer to see Winter. Our center defensive mids are Higuita and Serin. They are really the cog of Orlando City. Them and Kaká, that middle triangle is really where we win and where we die. And then in the back, I think we see, Bowden on the left. We'll see Colin in the middle. On the other side of Colin will either be Hines or Mateos. I believe Mateos is about 75% based on the coach's radio show on Tuesday, and the Hines update. I can't recall exactly. I think he was working through things, and I don't think he was training as of Tuesday. This is being recorded on Wednesday. And obviously Ramos in the back right and Tally Hall in the back. So, Kevin, when we lose games, we're really susceptible to speed players and the counter. And the other place where we really, lose games is when our defenders just get caught kind of ball watching, so to speak. So is there somewhere where Montreal is susceptible defensively that, is a reoccurring theme in your guys' losses?
We used to be a team that was focused on the counterattack and on the speed without Jero when he was attacking. That used to be the way Montreal was attacking, but we used to get burned by teams that used to possess the ball, move their block forward, were able to take ownership of Montreal's box and then cross it in and score. We saw that last year specifically. This year, though, those problems were fixed with the addition of Sima, with the blooming of Cabrera as a center back, Lefebvre stepping up and taking ownership of a homegrown academy spot, and really blooming and becoming one of the best young academy product of the history of the Montreal Impact. So with those players coming into the fold, they did answer the blatant weakness of Montreal. Montreal is very susceptible on free kicks still, though. If there's a free kick that is rightly placed, Evan Bush is one of the best keepers in the league, but unfortunately he's not one of the tallest. So how good you want to be, it doesn't matter when the ball is placed on the top corner and you can't reach it if you're not 6'5" like Tally Tall. I call him Tally Tall. I'm sorry. I have been calling him Tally Tall for the last 3 years. When he was with Houston, he was one of my favorite goalkeeper because of his size. Because let's not forget, one of the goalkeepers, it's one of the only spot on the field where your size actually matter. Not all the time, but for that one little free kick, sometimes it does. We did see him in Montreal once this year where Bush led one in. He just barely touched it, though. But that's the difference between putting a hand on it and touching it. I still love Evan Bush. If he's listening, I love you, buddy. You're one of my favorite goalkeepers in the league. You're one of the strongest. But you're 5'11", 6 foot, compared to a 6'5", I think, for Tally. So there's a big difference. And that could be a difference maker if there's a set piece 20 yards in and Kaká can get a foot on it. But Drogba can do the same thing. But that would be one of the weaknesses for Montreal.
Okay, and as far as injuries go, do you guys have any injuries that would be of concern?
There is a couple of injuries lingering. Montreal is getting better. Of course, Cameron Porter who earlier this year had suffered an ACL, has been out all season. The CONCACAF Champions League hero for Montreal against Pachuca has been out all season. Drogba is almost back to 100%. He's still, according to him, not 100%, but it's there. Justin Mapp is still questionable. He has started a couple games, came back at the end of the Wagers Cup, started a couple games in MLS, but last couple of weeks he was subbed out early, didn't play in the midweek game on the weekend. So Justin Mapp might be questionable for this Saturday. Ajuro is probably going to be at right midfielder with on top a Drogba. Piatti is not an injury, but he is still in Argentina on the bedside of his father. If he's going to make it back in time, it's still up in the air. For that question, it's going to be an interesting point to take a look until Saturday. But as of right now, Piatti is questionable, if not out of the question, in my opinion.
So, in my opinion, it's pretty obvious, just based on, our little conversation here, that Orlando City needs to stop Drogba to win. So, our central defenders will need to, mark him tightly when he's in the box. Our central defensive midfielders maybe can, keep a body on him so he's not just drifting around in free space. Other than, the Drogba versus the Orlando City defense, what do you think is another way that, Montreal could create some goals?
Montreal has crossed the ball 20 times last weekend against Chicago. In one game, they crossed the ball 20 times. That's unheard of for Montreal. They adjusted their style of play for Drogba, yes, but they adjusted as well to take advantage of players like Duca and Ajuro with their speed and their width play. So, example, Drogba's going to vacuum one or two players around him all the time because of his presence, because of his stature. A player like Duca and Ajuro are going to get open. Duca is the one that created space last Saturday. Even though he didn't score, he created the whole space. If you go back to Wednesday, he scored because he was at the right place. Drogba saw him alone, gave him the pass, and that pass came from midfield. So even if there's somebody on Drogba, when he's in the midfield, he comes back deep to help. So he's almost a box-to-box striker as a hold-up type of striker as well. So he's very complete and conceit in his great passes. He sees run like it's unbelievable to see. It's like he's got highs in the back of his head. He sees Map. He sees everybody do runs that were like, wow, he saw it. He passed the ball, and there's a goal. That was a Duca. So, yes, Drogba's going to be dangerous, but he's smart enough to implicate other people. I wouldn't be surprised if everybody gets fooled. They get 2-3 people on Drogba, then Duca's going to come all alone on goal and score. That wouldn't surprise me at all. I almost predict this to happen more than another Drogba goal because people are going to watch for Drogba.
Yeah, the film is out on Drogba. I mean, his game. He's been around for a long time, and his game is known and where his strengths and where his weaknesses are. And I think he has 2 hat tricks already. So even the MLS game film is out. And so, as far as matchup wise, do you have any questions about how Montreal is going to match up against Orlando City for me?
I'm interested to see Brek Shea. I've talked to him earlier this season when Orlando came to Montreal. I had the chance to talk to Brek. His size always impressed me. Yes, it wasn't necessarily easy for him this season. So it's been 3 years now since he left Dallas, tried ahead in England, came back. It wasn't easy for Brek, but he's still such an imposing player. I love his size when he gets either into the box or cross into the box. He's a future left back for sure for Orlando, even though he's in the midfield right now. He's a future left back for the national team for the U.S. for Orlando, and I can't wait to see what he does against a Montreal fullback that if there's a squad rotation because there's a lot of game on the road, maybe it can be vulnerable. So I think Brek Shea can be one of the keys for Orlando in that game because Kaká's going to get a lot of eyes on him. Brek Shea, being low profile, might have a chance to stun everybody in that game.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know that I would call Brek Shea low profile.
No, I know he stands out at 6'3", blonde hair, big stature and muscle. I know, but what I mean is he's not having the best statistical season this year, and people don't see him as a threat as really actually he is.
No, he's not having the best statistical season at all. I think he only has 3 assists, and 2 of them has since he's come back from injury. And prior to injury, when we were moving him from left back to left mid and here and there, and he was going out on national team and coming back, he never really found form. So he didn't have but 1 assist, and he still hasn't scored for us. So I would love to see a Brek Shea goal. I think it's just, even just statistically speaking, I think it's long overdue. So yeah, and I think that Brek Shea, obviously, he, with his size, he drifts into the middle from the left wing and tries to play the crosses. And, he's one of the, we pass the ball around and try to keep possession. I think Brek Shea is one of our better players at taking on a defender one-on-one and just running at a defender and trying to create his own. So, I think we move the ball around and hold possession laterally sometimes a little too often. And if we're going to see Lewis Neal on the right wing, he's a solid player, and I guess he's, I think Ron has referred to him as industrial. He's not someone who takes on a defender one-on-one. He's more of a squad guy. So, as far as Brek Shea goes, I'd love to see him, make some runs at goal. Maybe Kaká can slip him a nice pass and he can score this week. So that's, my hope. And so, Kevin, I can't really think of any other Orlando City stuff other than I mentioned our good form again. Tally Hall's been a beast. You talked about him. So, do you have anything else for me or anything that,
I have a question for you. I've been following USL for a long time, so I've been seeing Orlando play for a couple of years. How's Kevin Molino doing lately? One of the USL player that graduated with Orlando, and is a topic, a subject, because it's not just a step. Let's not lie to each other. Between the USL and MLS, it's not a step; it's a whole level. So, how did that transition go for him?
Okay, well, at the beginning of the season, before he tore his ACL, him and Kaká were forming a very good bond, and they were playing like 1-2 play off each other very well. And then came the Pont Verde friendly, or however you say that team's name, and he tore his ACL, and he's been out since. So we haven't seen him since.
Okay, so he's still out. Okay, I thought he was close to coming back.
Well, just from his Instagram and from social media, I've seen him, running on the treadmill and doing the rehab stuff, but he's not going to be in the squad. He's not going to be in the 18. He's still out. So, I would vary to say he's shut down for the year. I think if somehow we squeak in to the playoffs, I don't even think he'd play in the playoffs just because he hasn't played since March. But prior to, the injury, he was playing well. But since you're going to bring it up, I'll mention it. The player that has moved on with us from USL that has been amazing is Darwin Sarin. So Darwin Sarin in the defensive midfield has been really, really good. Every game, it seems like every game he puts in a good game. I mean, obviously every player has a down game here and there, but he's usually been pretty solid. And with, I talked about Brek Shea moving around. Luke Bowden at left back also came with us from USL, and he's also been very good and is absolutely a formidable MLS left back. And, I would prefer even just to see him stay at left back and Shea play on the left wing for the squad moving forward, even into next year, because, I think Bowden is that good. And in the window, we brought in Corey Ash to have some depth at left back. So hopefully that's an indication that, we plan on at least using Brek Shea at the wing more often than not.
Yeah, no, it could be. He has the size to play at that position, that's for sure. It's just depending on where the U.S. men's national team is sitting with Klinsmann or his successor. Who knows? He's going to be still there next year. If that's going to be important with where Brek Shea plays. It's because there's a theory, right, in development. If you have a guy that's really good on the ball and good going forward, you put him at a left back position or right back because he's going to help support the attack. So it depends where. It depends more what type of midfielders you have than actually Brek Shea himself, where he's going to play next year. So there's the Brek Shea situation fascinates me in a way because it's always a young prodigy who has trouble in the later stage of development, trying to correct those problems and trying to find the right space to bloom and to finally get to the level where everybody expects him to be.
Yeah, and you just mentioned it, so I'll just spin off your point. You mentioned someone who's good on the ball, and Bowden is good on the ball. Our offense kind of runs through those wings and to cross onto the inside when they can't make something happen in the middle, and so we need those crosses to come in from Bowden to whoever's in the middle. And, he's provided a couple good ones this year. So if you don't have anything else for me, we'll go into predictions, and you can be my guest and go first.
Perfect. Well, my prediction, unfortunately for your listeners, I predict the third win for Montreal on the road, a goal by Drogba with Duca finishing it 2-1 Montreal. But that's enough to not kill the hopes 100%, but to put a serious damper on Orlando's chance to make the playoffs.
All right. Well, I, as the people who follow my channel know, I was an absolute pessimist and thought that we were left for dead after July. My tune has since changed. And, we went away last week and beat Red Bulls. And as Kevin mentioned, Montreal has only had 2 wins on the road. I know a lot of that season was pre-Drogba, but nothing about their road, production has made me think that they can come here and get a win this week. I think that we're going to see our second largest crowd of the season after we had 63,000 opening day. The team's goal for this week is about 45,000. So I think we maybe even exceed the 45,000. I think we are going to continue our hot streak. I do think Drogba will score, maybe twice, but I think Orlando City has just enough magic left in the tank to pull this one out between Laren, and I am going to project that we get a Breck Shea goal this week, and I project a 3-2 Orlando City win. So with that said, I want to just take this second and say thank you to Kevin for coming on. And Kevin, if you could just tell everybody how to find you on social media one last time, that'd be really appreciated.
Absolutely. My personal Twitter is @KevLarame, LARAMEE. CanadianSoccerNews.com for my soccer content, KevinLarame.com for everything. And coming in the next couple of days, the rebranding of our network. It's going to be known as the Sports Podcasting Network, SPN. So look for it on iTunes, Twitter, anywhere. You'll be able to find not just the soccer shows, but every single show that we do here. You will be able to find it on Sports Podcasting Network. But Off the Woodworks is my Montreal Impact podcast. I interviewed a lot of players, coaches, journalists over the last couple of years. So if you're interested in knowing more about the opponent of Orlando this Saturday, check my archives of Off the Woodworks on iTunes, Stitcher, Feedburner, Player FM, Podbay. It's everywhere you get your podcast.
So there you guys have it. With that said, I will be doing fan TV after the game. I'll be in the back of lot 10 in front of the supporters lot in lot 11. So Kevin, thank you again. If you guys need any other questions answered about Montreal or want to just support Kevin and his, podcasting and covering of the Impact's journey, you know how to find him. If you guys want any more out of me, for fan TV wise this season, let me know. I've been saying that for weeks. So, thanks for the follow. Come to do fan TV interviews after the game. Peace out.